Hi, this is Corporate Kraken of ArtNurtureBeAKid. This afternoon I'm sitting in my art studio and I'm going to share with you my number one piece of advice for those who desire to become more creative. Creativity is the spice of life, and for those that choose to engage in the creative journey of discovering their own individual art, whatever that might be, it could be gardening, it could be parenting, or it could be like me, visual art. You can expect fullness, richness, daily meaning, and more excitement. So I look forward to sharing with you my number one piece of advice for becoming more creative. Those of you who know me know that I was an art major in college and that my dream was to become a professional artist. That dream started from a very young age. This is a picture of me at age 6. I decorated this, I think it must have been for Easter. And you can see my childlike interests are on the back here. Art, age 6, that's right, the age that I got my first easel. I also apparently really liked dogs, which I still do, and dessert. I've got some chocolate here, coffee is kind of over here, and purple, which is my favorite color, anyone who knows me. So yeah, this was who I was as a kid, and this little collage that I made at the age of 6, some of my favorite things, I guess. Anyways, along the way, I pursued art. I decided I was going to pursue art in college, and I graduated with these high hopes of becoming a professional visual artist, and realized once I got out of college that life in the real world was exceptionally more challenging than I had anticipated. And I think that it was sort of a long process. It maybe took about 3 years for me to kind of lose my steam, and a lot of that was adult concerns, paying bills, stress, balancing time, personal relationships, all of those things. And that 3 years of struggle post-grad led me into another 3 years of being incredibly creatively dry. 1 year in particular that was really bad. I didn't make any work, and it was one of the hardest years of my life. I wasn't making any art, didn't feel like myself. I didn't feel connected to that little 6-year-old kid who had cut out the word art, and I started looking for a better way. I started reaching out for resources that would help me come back to who I was creatively. And so those of you who know me now might think that that's sort of a distant, far off cry from who I am. Every day I come to this art studio, I work on my own personal art, I teach others ages 3 to 74 to make paintings and drawings and to be creative. So how did that happen to me? How did I lose sight of who I was, my identity and my creativity, my spring, you know, if you will? How did that happen? Well, it was a lot of fear and a lot of worry. And I think that that same thing happens to people any walk of life, whether or not you want to be a professional artist or not. Oftentimes I hear my older students say, I wish I could, but I can't. I wish I could, but I'm not creative. I wish I could do what you do, but I'm not talented. And I think what I'm really hearing them say is not so much that they don't believe they can learn it, but that there's like fear keeping them from learning it. So that's probably our biggest block, is fear, being an adult, all of those concerns like time, bills, and family obligations. Those are the things that keep us from enriching ourselves creatively. So how do we get back? How do we stop that cycle and re-engage? Here we go. I'm going to tell you right now. My best piece of advice for those who are longing to become more creative, giving your life more purpose, intention, daily excitement, and meaning, is to become a kid again. That's right, so many of us have spent so much of our lives trying to become more and more adults that we have lost our childlike nature, which is our key ingredient of nurturing, becoming more creative people. So yes, my number one piece of advice for how you can become more creative is to be a kid again. So I'm going to share with you the 3 easiest steps to regaining your childlike approach to creativity, art, and life. When I teach a 3-year-old how to make a painting, they don't say, oh, it doesn't look like this, or it doesn't look like that, or it's not good enough. They say, look at what I made. It's awesome. I'm an artist. And they don't have that sense yet of being a perfectionist or comparing themselves to others because they're so fresh, they're so new. And it's so funny, they enjoy the process. They enjoy the doing just for the doing of it. And so when I say quiet your inner perfectionist and do for the joy of doing, do it for the love of doing it, I mean be a 3-year-old with paint. Because a 3-year-old with paint is enjoying the process of doing it like it's fresh for the first time. So if you've been sitting around saying, I really wish I could take a dance class, but I don't have any time, or you go to a dance class and you get so stressed out about doing it that you're just really not even enjoying it, just go. Put a smile on your face and do it for the joy of doing it. Don't compare yourself to Fred Astaire and Ginger Rogers because you're not them and you don't have to be, and that's okay. This is for you. This is for you becoming more creative, for you becoming more rich, for you having a life that's filled with spice and purpose and joy. This is not about being a movie star or being perfect. So a lot of us as adults, we have these perfectionists that are constantly talking to us in our head and saying, it's not good enough, it's not good enough, I'm not good enough, yada yada. 3-year-olds with paint, they don't think that at all, not one bit. So do it for the joy. Okay, so how many of you out there, when you were a kid, your parents told you to turn the TV off and go outside and play? Or how many of you are there out there that are parents that tell your kids to stop watching TV, stop playing video games, and go play, go do something? When we look at our kids or we think about how our parents treated us as children, we see that they valued that free time to give us to play, to learn, not just be sitting and being spoon-fed whatever's on television, but to explore and to discover and to have free time to decompress and to let our minds wander. We value that for our children, and we see that kids need that. Sitting in front of the TV doesn't make kids come up with new discoveries, and we really put a high value on play for children. And then again, that's one of those things that we lose when we go into adulthood. We don't value that play. And oftentimes our free time is very geared towards social obligations or familial obligations or even work obligations. We socialize with people we work with to network, and we don't really release and play. And we oftentimes come home from work and we're tired and we're drained. We turn the TV on, eat dinner in front of the TV, and then go straight to bed. And that's a tough pattern to break. I've been there. I have definitely been there. But I've recognized that when I go outside and I go for a walk and I let my mind wander, maybe I go sit with an empty sketch pad, or I sit in a bookstore and slowly sip a cup of coffee and have my sketchbook out and I just get some books that are interesting to me. That's a way that I can play. It's a way that I'm engaged in myself creatively, but it's also a way that I'm not like wasting time. I'm not doing nothing. It's very important to have that free time, but I'm also not watching television, like disengaged, unplugged, and sometimes you don't feel good and you want to watch a movie. Totally value that. That's fine. But what I'm talking about is the habitual kind of pattern that we can get into where we are filling our free time with things that aren't of deeper value to us. And free time or downtime where we are geared towards play, being outside, going for a walk, and not worried about networking or work or completely disengaging, but we can have constructive playtime like we value for kids, like our parents valued for us, or we went outside in the woods and built a tree house. That's just as important for us as adults, and especially if we want to be in tune with ourselves creatively and we want to have a creative life and come up with new discoveries as adults. Those things are just as important. So Invite play into your life. If you find yourself stuck in a pattern of coming home from work and sitting right down on the couch and watching the television, stop for a moment and think, turn it off, go for a lap around the block, and just decompress that way. See what happens. Maybe your heart rate gets up, some stress gets relieved, and some new ideas are opened up. But there's a lot of different ways that you can play as an adult, but you need to invite it into your life and not close it off. So, number 2, invite play, aka turn your TV off. You are quieting your inner critic. You're doing things for the joy of doing them. You're turning off your television and inviting play into your life. You're starting to feel a little bit more like a kid. Maybe you're starting to feel a little more loose, a little more limber creatively. And now it's time to write down those creative dreams and goals you have. I like to call this the wish list, because when you're a kid, and that's what I'm telling you to do, is my number 1 piece of advice is becoming a kid again. What did you write down when you were a kid? You wrote down things that you wished for when you were big, when you were an adult. So I want you to write down a wish list, and I want you to write down at least 3 things, maybe even 5, 3 to 5, but minimum of 3 things that you wish you could be doing, but you haven't built into your life at this point. This list is kind of like realizing you're an adult who can become the kind of adult you always dreamed you'd be as a kid. Like when you said, I'm gonna grow up and I'm gonna build a house that has a slide down into a pool, things like that. But maybe you say, I'm gonna be an artist, or I'm gonna be someone who makes the best spaghetti sauce and I give it to everyone in the world. It could be a lot of different things. Maybe you wanted to write a book when you were a kid, or you started writing poems when you were little, and now it's time to re-engage in that. Maybe you did want to take dance classes but couldn't afford to when you were younger, so now it's time to find a community dance center where you can go and take some adult ballet classes for the very first time. What's on your list? What is on your list? I'll tell you one of mine. I had a childhood dream of learning to play violin. I've had this dream since I was about 11 years old, so it's been a long time, almost 20 years, that I've had this dream, and I've just now started to learn to play the violin. And I'm so bad, and it's okay. I'm having the time of my life, and I love holding it and learning how to hold it, and hopefully one day I won't sound nearly so bad, but it's on my list, my top 3 things, my wish list, and I would encourage you to make that list and then find ways that you can begin to build those things into your life and make them a reality. Don't just make the list and sit there and go, this is ridiculous. Start researching. Look up on the internet who could be your teacher. Phone a friend, call someone and ask them to help you with your list. I wanted to learn to sew, and I know someone that I'm close to that knows how to sew, so that's who I called to help me learn to sew. And there's all kinds of things that you could do. There's all kinds of resources. There's all kinds of YouTube videos for you to re-engage and to make that list become a reality. So make a wish list, dream big, and be honest with yourself. McCracken saying thank you so much for joining me for this installment of Art Nurture. And my best piece of advice for nurturing yourself creatively and for making yourself a more creative person is to be a kid again. I hope that you take these 3 easy steps and begin inviting play into your life and quieting that inner critic and making a wish list of the things that you'd like to choose to spend your time on in the future. So again, thank you for taking the time, and I'm gonna get back to the easel. I'll see you next time. Bye.